that the policy, the intent is to destroy the entire territory and quite possibly render it uninhabitable for generations to come. Two things have happened in the last 24 hours that make...
Yeah, it's hard to miss the fact that the Israelis are intent on depopulating, or to use a World War II phrase that was a euphemism for bombing civilians, dehousing the Palestinians. Because that seems to be what the argument ultimately breaks down into. It's like, well, they're not aiming to kill Palestinians, they're aiming to dehouse them. That's fucked up.
I think impossible to avoid that conclusion. The first is a warning from Western leaders against explicit Israeli plans to resettle hundreds of thousands of Gazans in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah, seriously. It's like you're taking... I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, they're you know... If you read Eichmann in Jerusalem by Hannah Arendt, you know that one of the first things the Nazis wanted to do was to just get the Jews out. Get the Jews out of Germany. Because at the time that's all they had. And so they had all kinds of bizarre plans about, pushing them west, pushing them east, and so on. And it was this bizarre plan to evacuate Jews to Madagascar. I mean, if we didn't know where the Holocaust is going, the insanity of saying that, it ought to be self-evident. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't laugh about it, because, a lot of millions were systematically exterminated between shootings and gas chambers. So probably not something to make light of. But talking about evacuating Palestinians to the Congo, I mean, I don't know. It has that. It just, yeah. I don't know what to say. It's just insane.
So one report has suggested that there have been secret talks to send displaced people there. Some Israeli officials, including far-right, and that phrase isn't even controversial, members of government, far-right ministers, have been publicly advocating for the resettlement of Gazans.
Yeah, I mean, even the language is the same as Eichmann. I mean, Eichmann in Jerusalem, it's a book by Hannah Arendt. If you don't know who Eichmann is, it doesn't really matter. But he was put on trial, and I think the Israelis captured him in Argentina, secretly got him out of the country, and put him on trial, and ultimately hanged him in Israel. But anyway, this just has this parallelism to the kind of discussion in that book about the early plans for Jews, move them somewhere. And if you've read enough of the material relating to, I guess, Zionist plans for the land of Palestine prior to it becoming Israel and some rough corners, it all had to do about achieving a majority Jewish population so that Jews would have a homeland where they also had political control, so that you couldn't get the kind of anti-Semitic laws that were passed in Nazi Germany in the 1930s and frankly existed in most comparable discrimination existed in all European countries and North American countries. Really, there was a lot of interesting. Anyway.
I don't know what definition of ethnic cleansing you work under, or the relevant institutions here work under, but if you take an entire people from their homes and relocate them to a far off land, a far off territory, then that's pretty close, I would have thought, to most people's definition of ethnic cleansing. The West has expressed
Yeah, well, it is ethnic cleansing, right? I mean, what else are you gonna call that? I mean, Jesus. I've watched a number of discussions that just kind of leave you with this bizarre feeling of it's like just be honest. I mean, the Israeli government seems to be fairly comfortable discussing ethnic cleansing, but they don't want to call it that. I mean, it's voluntary migration by other means, I guess, or something. I don't know. It's a bizarre situation.
Concern about these supposed plans. The rhetoric, they say, is inflammatory and irresponsible. The African nation is 2,500 miles from Gaza, and the way.
Yeah, again, Madagascar. Move the Jews to Madagascar because that'll work. This is really, I mean, my God, I mean, if I know how uncomfortable that parallel is for most people, and yet it's hard to miss it. You know, it's like one of the fellows that's published a piece that basically paralleled it with the Warsaw Ghetto uprising and the clearing of the ghetto. Except for that, the ghetto uprising took place at a time when, for all intents and purposes, the Nazi occupation authorities were already clear on exterminating Jews. This is taking place in a situation where it's kind of the unstated goal to get rid of them, but there's no comfort yet with the idea of just kill them all. It's, kill some of the, kill a percentage and get the rest to flee. But it's pretty clear that there's nowhere to flee. And I think that's where, that final solution comes about, is when you come to accept that there is no place that will take this population. What do you do? Anyway.
Way that the story has been picked up on the Times of Israel's Hebrew site, which is called Zman Yisrael, suggests that senior sources believe that the talks have unfolded. They call it the voluntary migration of Gazans to other countries. But how voluntary would it be if the alternative is a hellscape?
I think the bigger question that you really have to keep in the back of your head is sorry about that. The bigger question is what happens when you realize that you can't actually do that. That it's just not going to happen. You can't get them out of that space. How do you solve the problem when you can't get them to move? I think that's something to think about, or not. watching these, so it's good.